change that we need. Keep your mind alert and your heart with peace. Be the change that we want to see. Yeah, go and share your gift. Yeah, your gift is a seed. You can easily be the change that we need. Keep your mind alert and fill your heart with peace. Be the change that we want to see. Yeah.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Mentality Unchained. I'm your host, Kevin Thomas. I'm the therapist. This episode, we're just going to chop it up with some of the men that I kind of like to refer to when it comes to wisdom. And I think they got a lot to talk about today, and I just want to really chop it up with them. So if you don't mind, welcome to the show, Dontrell Hanna, Matt Gibson, Randy Scott, and James Holloman.
What up?
Thank y'all for joining me, fellas.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
No problem. Appreciate you having me.
We almost didn't make it, man. Sound check, right? No, but I do appreciate y'all coming through. I will say that I've been knowing Dontrell for a while now, but I didn't know him up until 2 months ago. Yeah. A lot of times we see people in passing, we shake hands because we brothers, we always speaking. But I got a chance to really know this brother and understand this brother. And I think he's a great man of God. And I also think he's just a great individual altogether. So, man, thank you for having me in your house.
Yes, appreciate you, man.
We in your house. Yes, so, I talked to the ladies when we, a couple months ago, about their experiences as black women, as black mothers, as black wives, and the plight of the George Floyd situation back in 2020. And one of the things that happened when it first happened, I kind of took it hard. Mm-hmm. I struggled with it. And first thing I did, I got on the phone with my producer and I was like, hey, we need to do a show because right now I'm feeling some type of way. I wanted to be able to talk about it. I wanted to be able to get some of that stuff off my chest. But now fast forward 2 years after, where are we at with this feeling of just being black men? If you guys can think like when George Floyd happened, now we're 2 years later, where are we at in terms of black men?
I think after the George Floyd thing, we're still being targeted. I don't want to say individually, but black men in general, and it seems like I don't want to jump on all the officers in law enforcement, but they do. It seems like it's more intense for a black man to be out and about and get stopped by the police, after the George Floyd thing. It's like everybody's skeptical, everybody's kind of afraid, to be pulled over by themselves. They really have somebody with them. That way, there's a witness. But I think it's still, from that incident, I think it's compound on black men in general. That's just my personal feeling.
Wow. Well, for y'all that don't know, Matt is a police officer, and I think this is just a great topic to start off with. Matt, I mean, you on the other side of this thing,
right?
But you black and you're a police officer. Yeah. So how do you deal with it? I mean, after all this stuff went on, man.
So it's interesting. So like you said, I'm a police officer, work at the NIU Police Department, which is the campus in DeKalb. So interesting, I have jurisdiction within our NIU campus or whatever, which ranges, a couple miles. And then our campus is inside the city of DeKalb. So because of that, I also have jurisdiction there for certain calls.
Okay.
When it involves our students and different things like that. I'm also a Greek liaison officer. So some of our Greek houses are in some of our higher crime areas or whatever. So I have to respond to those calls or whatever. And some of those areas are populated by primarily African-American men, women, and children. Not in necessarily the best living conditions, but they're there. So for me, I'm a father, police officer, soon to be husband. So a lot of different hats that I wear. So when I make my interactions, when I have my, contacts with people, I try to come from that place just to kind of, come from a non-judgmental place, non-authoritative, just come in calm and relax. I can't speak for every police officer. Yeah. And that's the one thing I would say about this incident. As much as people gave police crap for what happened, which is all warranted, I'm completely with that. You have to understand that every police department is different. Every police department has its own state laws that they follow, their own department policy, their own general orders that they have to follow, and then their own morals and ethics. So I can't tell you why Chauvin or why any of those other men on the scene did what they did, besides what we saw. So that was the one thing I tried to get people to understand was from a police officer's perspective, I can tell you, hey, that wasn't appropriate. At some point, like I said, once that force has been exerted to neutralize or whatever the threat, I don't want to say kill, even though some police officers look at it that way, to neutralize a threat, to neutralize something, to not make it a harm or danger to you anymore is the way I look at it. But encompassing that does sometimes result in great bodily harm or death to a person. Even if it's not intended, possibility that could happen. So that's one of the biggest things. So I try to keep people in the concept of you have to understand. From my perspective, I only know so much on scene. In this situation, we knew, very little, but we knew enough in that, 8 to 10 minute clip of, hey, this is not right. Regardless of if you're a police officer, if you're black, white, whatever your race is, whatever you're born from, none of that should have happened from any standpoint or whatever. Once he was in cuffs, once you got him on the ground, even if he was fighting, at some point you have to, release that force or whatever. Same thing, like if that was a shooting situation, you don't just keep getting to pump out, the rest of, your 2 magazines, 4 magazines. Right? That's the same way I look at it. That's the same perspective I put it in. So like I said, I can't tell people why he did what he did. That's more so a conversation you have to have with him. And he doesn't have to tell you. He could give you some, blanket answer and leave it at that. But the biggest thing I try to make sure people understand is that the police have the right to take away your authority or to take away your rights. So the biggest thing with that is sometimes, you have to turn the other cheek. Sometimes you do have to think about your life, think about your family, your friends and stuff like that, and fight that battle after it's happened. If it doesn't get to that point where you have to intervene or protect yourself. Of course, you can always, hey, I'm not comfortable, ask for another officer on scene or something like that. But for those people on scene, that's a hard thing to do when you got 3 police officers with guns, tasers, batons, OC spray, whatever that could be used against you because you're trying to impede them doing justice or whatever. Even with some of the court systems, they are so pro-police that they don't see the wrong in what police officers do. Even, with the police reports, they may see something shady, iffy or whatever, and they'll turn the other cheek and keep moving, whatever. That officer could have, like Chauvin, 20 plus years in the job, and he may know some people, whatever, in that state, in that office, that county office or circuit clerk's office. So I don't know, maybe a lot of that, has governed his behavior or whatever, and this was just the one time where I wouldn't say divine intervention. One thing my mom always taught me is that sometimes God allows things to happen, and then sometimes He ordains things to happen. So I can't tell you if this was ordained or allowed. What I would say is that God wasn't involved in this necessarily. I think that this was just the perfect time, place, and moment to shed light on what has happened to probably tons of other black men across the country, across the world, throughout history from the 400 plus years that we've been enslaved. So. It's an unfortunate situation, but everything that happened in that situation, thankfully, everything got resolved. Thankfully, he got the time that he deserved. Like I said, is it what some people would have wanted? No, some people probably would have wanted him dead, whatever the case may be. I wouldn't wish that on him or anybody, whatever, because I'm a man, I'm a father. I've done some things in my life. We've all probably done some things that are questionable. If somebody, knew some of the things, they're like, Matt, so-and-so, no, I don't, that's not the person I want to, be around or, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's not my place to judge him. It's just my place to look at the facts of what happened, and then from there, determine how I want to, conduct myself as a police officer, how my coworkers should be, how my partners should be. So one of the big things in Illinois that's been interesting, and it's kind of caused a shift in terms of hiring, in terms of turnover in police departments, is that they passed a reform bill, and so in a lot of that bill is going to be things taking place, every couple years. But some of that has involved the duty to intervene, whatever, which has always been there, but now it's just become more of a pressing matter where you could be charged with official misconduct potentially for not intervening, or whatever. You could be charged with negligence or for not acting, when appropriate. And that's always been there. But, just like in the African American community, we try to keep everything in house, even if your boy doing something wrong, that's still my boy, I'm gonna be with him, whatever. And we don't always, feel comfortable addressing that, and it's the same thing in policing. It's a dysfunctional family, to say it. It's whatever we want to break or whatever we want to end, it's not gonna happen overnight. Chauvin's situation, George Floyd, that was just one situation over many that we're gonna have to probably endure, before we actually see real change and real things happen. But I got into the profession, hoping to kind of be the difference that people need to see. I want people, to understand that it's a tough job, or whatever, but if you can avoid police contact, by all means do so. And sometimes that's, just a matter of sacrificing your needs and your wants at the time, or whatever, and then doing it, when it's more convenient. Sometimes, even with our students, they want to have parties and different things like that at certain places. And it's like, is it, wrong? No, I was like, we can understand you all being students, but you all have to understand it's a time and a place for everything. Everything has to happen within its season, within its moment, within its, phase. And you can't be upset at me when I have to come and do my job, to prevent, somebody from calling, to prevent somebody from making a complaint or whatever, because they don't hear about that complaint. I just hear it over the radio, hey, Officer Gibbs, I need you to go to this slot or this part of campus for a complaint of XYZ. And
well, before you get so deep into that, because I hear you, man. You got a lot to go with. But I want to hear from Dontrell from us.
You know what, KG, and you already own it, because as a father, my first thought for me, it wasn't for me, it was for my two boys. I have a 25-year-old son and a 22-year-old son, who, when I say are in the streets, they're in the streets. What I mean by streets is, I'm not saying they out there gang banging or hustling, but they out at night. They out with friends. They're riding deep, possibly at times. So my first thought goes to them. I pray daily for them, because a lot of times you can be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Prime example, like Matt alluded to, this thing has been going on for a long time. And I think one of the things, sadly, we lost George Floyd, but one of the things I think more light has been brought on it. Body cams, different things now that they're trying to do to try to help prevent this thing from continuing to happen. But like I tell my boys, I said, see, you have to comply. See, we talking, right? And we can talk about, African American, we can talk about this. But can I say, real talk, and this might not be popular, we can't act black. What I mean by that is, you can be a threat to the police yourself. And a lot of times, when these police pull up and they're doing their jobs, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying all of them, but some of them are doing their job. Now, you got some bad cops. There's some bad apples in the bunch. But for the most part, most of the officers that I've encountered, whether personally, they've been good cops. And I'm not saying all of them are bad. You do have a couple that are bad. But can we govern our children? We need to teach our children at home to be submissive to authority. Whether it's authority in the home, when you see a cop in the street, if he asks you to stop, put your hands out of the car, comply. I've seen movies. I've seen young people. You ain't going to tell me what to do. And we use the George Floyd thing. We use this thing so, they can act a fool. You put them in a bad situation. And I tell my boys all the time, listen, if they ask you to get out of the car, get out of the car. If they ask you to put your hands up, put your hands up. That's not saying we have all these different ones that died before. Maybe they did comply, and some of them lost their lives unjustly. But do your part. We can't blame everything on the officer.
Exactly.
We have a responsibility as black men to teach our boys at home. See, that's the problem. We ain't got enough black men in the home. Listen, let me go on with it. KT, go on with it, because now I'm going to start talking about black men in the home. And that's the reason why our youth, are some of them in a bad situation, because we don't have the men in the home to say, boy, stop doing that. Snatch him up in his collar and get him right.
See, we got us a bunch of strong black men up in here. Okay.
That's true.
So I get what you're saying, and one of the things that I always think about, and I'll be honest with you, about 15, 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't be thinking like I am now, but I'm older now. And the one thing that I understand about police officers is that they want to get home too. And so they put in danger every single day. They get up, it's a sacrifice, and once they put that gun on that belt, they walk out that door. Who knows if they coming back or not?
That's true.
And so I think we, as black fathers too, have the responsibility. Just what you were saying is to teach our boys, especially our boys, that you got to respect the law, regardless of what they say and what they do. And the thing about social media is it just. Sometimes it can be toxic, because they get on there and they record and they like, okay, he's filming a cop. Well, if you do what you're supposed to do, you don't have to have these problems. So then let's lead into the show is about mental health. I want to be honest with you. The show is about mental health, and this is everything has to do with mental health. Is a difference between mental illness and mental health. Mental illness, you have a disorder, actual disorder. Mental health is taking care of your mind. Okay, so how do we, Randy? I'm gonna go start with you. How do we as black men start to deal with our mental health when it comes to all of this kind of stuff that we're talking about right now?
One, this right here, this forum, I think that's one of the remedies to it, because a lot of times us as black men, we keep so much in, and you know, we should be each other's keepers. But a lot of times in our community, you know, you tell a brother a story, and next thing you know, he's telling someone else. Wow. They're telling someone else. Next thing you know, they're talking about you. You're ridiculed. So, you know, also it's a trust factor. Yeah. To knowing who I can talk to. Right. What brothers can I talk to? You know, I think that has a lot to do with it.
And, you know, to cut in, don't it also come back to, you know, our bringing up, and we've been taught, you know, as young boys, and we grew up as men, that we're not supposed to be weak. We're not supposed to cry. Nope, so a lot of that, you know, when you grow up and get grown and maybe have children or whatever, you keep all this inside of you. And one day, you know, like mental health, one day all that's going to tangle up in you, and you ain't going to know which way to go. Because you got a foundation that you been instilled in you that you shouldn't be weak. Don't show weakness. And I think a lot of that has to do with that too, as far as your mental health.
And then society just sees say an angry black man, but they don't understand what this black man has went through and what he's taken on. So.
But if you saying that though, I agree with you, but if you saying that, then why don't we go ask for help? Because there are people out there that are trying to help us. When we're going through stuff, we keep it in, but then there are people around us that will help us. Now, I'm not saying everyone is out for us and they want to help us.
Right. Yeah.
But when they do present themselves as, hey, brother, I got you. I want to help you. Why do we turn away?
Pride.
Shame. Proud. Yeah.
It.
You know,
what my homies gonna say about me because we don't go? It is. It's just straight pride.
That's not the cool thing to do.
Some men think that it's punkish to ask another man for help or advice. You know, that's my house. I run my house away, and you'd rather go through, you know, seasons of drought and lack rather than ask somebody who's been where you're trying to go for help.
Exactly. Yes, sir. Yes,
sir.
Wow. Yes, sir.
And it's a two-way street. I think, you know, like I said, as much as we have to ask for help, we gotta, you know, if we don't ask, we gotta seek it out, you know. And I think that's, you know, biblical principle, you know, not just in that sense, but, you know, we have to, you know, at some point, like I said, the pride has to go away. At some point, it's not about, you know, the upbringing in the house. It's just about what you're exposed to, you know, from, you know, the little things. Even, you know, raising my son, he's 18 months old, everything that I do, you know, even some of the little things, me getting upset. I got upset one day, and, you know, slapped the chair down, and it wasn't intentional, but it was just, I was so frustrated in the moment of what I was dealing with. Didn't think, you know, like he's there. And fiance, you know, she looked at me and I could just see the frustration in her eyes. And I was like, man. And I didn't grow up with my dad. My dad passed when I was 8 months old due to a drug overdose. So my mom, you know, raised me being the oldest male, my twin brother, my younger brother, and my older sister. My youngest brother, my older sister had their fathers, you know, whatever, and they would see them from time to time. But my mom was the bread and butter. You know, everything she did, you know, was for us. So even for her, you know, sometimes the time or the opportunity to have those conversations wasn't always there. And then you can't always talk or tailor everything to every child the same way. So like I said, I think it is a two-way street. You know, like I said, as much as we talk about mental health, we got to identify it. We got to be able to have those conversations at home. If nobody's having that conversation at home, you aren't going to know. You know, like I said, knowledge is power. And at the end of the day, like I said, if you don't have the knowledge or if you don't have the understanding that, hey, this is what I'm going through, we label, and, you know, like I said, I think one of the biggest things, and I know it happened for me growing up and I had to realize, but we label everything we see, you know, as we put it all in this one bucket. A child being upset, you know, or being sad, sometimes is labeled as angry, as being destructive. We put them in these post-secondary schools when they get, you know, to high school because they're acting out. And sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's the trauma. Sometimes it's the stuff that they don't get to unravel at home. Sometimes it's somebody not sitting down and having that conversation. Hey, look, you know what? I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to ask you, hey, why do you feel this way? What's going on right now in this moment?
Not to cut you off, son. And KT, I know you asking the questions, but my question is this. You said something a little while ago. How do we as black men identify that we struggling and we got problems? If we think we got it all together, and we think that we running our homes the right way, and we think we raising our children the right way, those anger moments, how do we, if we don't have that person Because if we can be honest, sometimes we don't allow our wives the room to say, hey, hon, you wrong for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Some
good.
men, you shut your wife completely down when she
Yeah.
say, well, hon, I don't think that's
Yeah.
right, or you should handle that the right kind of way. It's a time and place to do it, but a lot of men don't allow their wives to express themselves to bring you back down to earth. Right. So now if you dealing with anger issues and you don't, how are you supposed to identify it if you're an angry black man?
Yeah.
But see, this is what has to happen with that, and I'm glad you brought that up because we have to be accountable. And you have to have people around you that will hold you accountable.
Yeah.
And then to the point too, you said your wives. We have to give our wives permission to be themselves.
That's it. Right. That's it.
Yeah.
And the problem
good.
with that is we're so proud that we feel that hey, you're gonna challenge my manhood. But then we also say that they're our helpmeet. So how are they our helpmeet? But then they're challenging our manhood.
Right. Exactly.
So we got to make sure that we know where we at with this.
Yeah.
So why do we fear? Because James said this off air. He says, when women step forward, we step back. What are we fearing? Why do we fear that? Why do we fear if a woman steps forward that they're taking control over our household or our manhood or whatever? Why do we feel that? Why do we just crawl back into the darkness while they step forward? Why do we do that?
Being vulnerable. I think that's the biggest
So,
thing.
okay, I'm glad you said vulnerable because
good.
that's a good one. Why do we fear being vulnerable?
Because it's not what some generations started out seeing all the time. Being vulnerable, even we can go back to slavery. Being vulnerable even in that moment was not always acceptable. You had to be strong. You had to be tough. You had to make sure make sure the man, whoever it was, had to make sure you saw you strong. Or whatever. And I think that's become a cycle. Not because we forced it on ourselves, but I think that was a learned behavior, so to speak. And some things, like I said, some people say that, you just have to do something 20 times before it becomes a habit.
21.
Or whatever it is. So, something, I think, for some people, it becomes a habit for you not to show emotion, not to, really expose yourself or whatever, to be strong, to be tough, or whatever, because if somebody can take away your manhood, if somebody can, make you feel less of a person, why am I going to expose myself? It's going to happen anyway. Some people feel that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I'm just going to accept it and take it, and they comply, as opposed to just saying, you know what, no, I'm not going to just take it. Like I said, I'll allow it to happen, but I'm also going to be like, hey, look, explain this to me, break it down, give me some sort of insight into it as to why. But I think too, like I said, once we do open up and become vulnerable, the moment somebody shuts us down, the moment somebody tells us no or whatever the case may be, that's it. That's all we need. That's all some people need, and they carry that with them for the rest of their lives. Because at some point, like I said, that same situation is going to present itself in a new form, and then they'll continue to do the same thing. You know what? I remember seeing this last week. I remember seeing this 2 years ago, when this happened. I'm not going to open up because it happened the last time. Even if that person has the most genuine approach and response to what you do. And I see it on the job all the time. I have the most genuine response when I try to deal with our students. I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be mad, whatever. Because a lot of those students, I don't look at them as kids. I look at them as my siblings, whatever. And so for me, it's always a teaching point with everything. But I'm not every person. I'm not every man. So I think, a lot of it, you have to be vulnerable. But being vulnerable is weak. Being vulnerable is not, it's not.
Yep, there it is.
That's good.
Or
That's
whatever.
the word right
So,
there.
like I said, we
That's
gotta
the word right
go
there.
back. It's a lot of foundation.
Yeah.
Whatever that's, around it. And vulnerability is not a part of that foundation in African American community. It's not something that we, impose or encompass all the time. And we have to, put it in the atmosphere.
Man, what are you talking about? Black men are not vulnerable. We are not weak.
Right. And I think there's different definitions of weakness, and I think it's a weakness when we don't come forward.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so, how do we stand in our truth? Because let me talk to you, Dontrell. When it comes to leadership, people look to you to lead them, and you're not able to be transparent, to be vulnerable, or are you? So how can you help the next man, young man, older man, wisdom? Can you help them to live in their truth if you're not living in your truth, or are you living in your truth?
I try to be as genuine as I possibly can. And what I mean by that is, even with the situation my wife is dealing with, a lot of times I had somebody reach out to me the other day, and they said, Pastor, I know, you're a pastor, you got grandkids, you got your wife, you got so many things going on with you, and I'm praying for you. And I'm trying to keep from crying out. And it meant so much to me because as a pastor, people expect me, they call for prayer, they call for this, they call for that. But can I be honest? pastors get weak too.
That's it.
Expect you to be
And we
Superman.
need people to uphold our arms too.
Yeah.
We have lives too. And I'm, going into my 4th year, I'm learning to balance pastoring along with being a husband, along with being a grandfather. And it's not an easy job. So I think for me, just being honest, I can't do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm weak. You know what I'm saying? I need help. Pray for me. You know what I'm saying? And I think that for me, that's the best way, because we've got this thing where we macho and we can handle everything. But like I was telling them in Bible study the other night, I was just visiting with one of my members the other day that lost their mother. And I told him, I said, it's okay not to be okay. Stop telling people, how you do. I'm okay. You're not okay. And one of my members here was there and he said, Pastor, I'm not okay. And I said, it's good to say that you're not okay, because now you've identified your pain and you're willing to deal with it instead of saying, I'm okay. And that's the situation me and my wife are kind of dealing with. Just being okay for so long, thinking you're okay, you're really not okay. And then you hit a wall. You know what I'm saying? So, I think for me, just in leadership, just trying to be transparent and honest is what I try to do.
Is that a difficult thing for you to do, Randy? Is like when you let's just say you're sitting with your spouse and you just feeling some type of way. Is it okay for you to just say, hey, babe, I'm not doing good, can I just sit here for a minute? We don't do that enough. Have you ever found yourself, in that spot, in the moment, and you're like, hey,
we just chopping it up. We being men. It's been several times to where, because like we all agreed on, they look at us kind of to be Superman. And, for how I want to put it, for us to finally, like I said, be vulnerable, and you look up and you see your husband that's usually, he's working all the time and he's pretty tough and he doesn't let things get to him. But when you finally see the emotions and the tears come in his eyes, and even with us, I think a lot of the men I talk to, a lot of us don't even complain enough. And sometimes, we think about complaining as being bad, but I've learned over the years, sometimes you got to complain to get this out of your system. I mean, you got to have a venting time, but you got to be able to vent and complain at the same time. But it's tough. And I've learned over the years, me and my pastor, we've talked several times. I've learned to, everything that I say, it's a time and a place to say it.
That's wisdom.
I've learned to, I can't say that right now. She's not ready to hear that. I have to wait maybe a couple hours. It might be a day, but then it comes back around the way, okay, this is what I was talking about, or this is how I'm feeling. Do you understand now? And it usually works out. So
I think, and going on what you were saying, I think a lot of some men don't allow their wives to be the helpmate that they're supposed to be. Like you can be down and something can be troubling you, and you go to them and let them vent to them. Let them see how you feel, or what you think. I mean, sometimes their opinion is great. Sometimes their comfort for you is great. But as some men, you're supposed to be strong, and you ain't supposed to let your woman see you weak. But sometimes that plays in your favor, because she's your helpmeet. At least she's supposed to be your helpmeet. And if you're down and if you need comforting, she right there. Then allow her. Allow her to comfort you.
I've learned that black women are a lot more stronger than we are.
Absolutely.
We don't lean on them enough. Now, I do know we do have a responsibility. And you don't go and beat your chest down, going in your house, talking about I'm the man of this house. You have to walk with the respect and the dignity of worthy to be called the man of the house. So you can't just do that. But then they have a responsibility to keep the atmosphere in the house to a certain temperature. And if we come in there all kind of way, we pushing them away. But we need to be able to go to them and say, hey, babe, I just need you right now. I just need you to just. But I said that to say is because I very rarely get black men in my office. And I always tell people that, because people think because I'm a black therapist that I get a lot of black people. the total opposite.
Yeah.
I don't get half the black people that I need to be getting.
Yeah. Believe
Because we're ashamed, we're
Yeah.
embarrassed.
That's the
We
main
don't
thing.
want,
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to say I got a therapist.
Yeah.
Look, let me tell you
That's a cool
something.
look.
Yeah.
You need somebody that with an unbiased opinion,
That's
somebody
it.
that's gonna listen to you,
Yeah.
and somebody gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
You, if you don't have those type of people in your life, you need to find you a therapist. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because I'm one, but I know as a black man that I've struggled with that over the years of just being able to have an outlet
Yeah.
to talk to someone. And, you know, I worked on myself through the years, but I always like to encourage black men to just go seek some help if they need it. If they need it.
Yeah.
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 So now, Thomas, this free advice, because see, anybody got to pay you for this right now.
Right.
But what I want to ask you is this. As a pastor, I talk to many men, and we were just talking about this conversation. So I want you to speak to the audience. I know this is your show, bro, but I just want to ask you a question. How does a man, if he doesn't have the support that he needs from his wife, how can he go to her when he's weak?
That's good.
So if I'm a godly man and say my wife is in the streets, not my wife, but say your wife is in the streets and she can't, and you go to her because you're weak, and you need somebody to pray for you, you need somebody to listen to you, and she's not there, she's not supportive to your vision and your movements. How do you respond? Where do you go then?
So I'm gonna give you the therapist version since you said
It's free.
This is free. It's free. So
charge.
there's a difference between healthy and perfect. We're in relationships that are not healthy. So if the relationship is not healthy, then guess what? You're not going to get that spouse that responds, say,
That's
I got
it.
your back.
That's it. That's
so
it.
It's your responsibility, and it's our responsibility as a man. If our marriages and our relationships are not healthy, you owe it to yourself to say, I got to go. This is not the relationship for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everybody have to leave their spouses and their girlfriends and boyfriends.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is it's your responsibility to nurture a healthy relationship.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
if
sir.
you and that spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend can't do that, then you guys need to consider parting ways.
Baby.
Yeah.
Amen.
It starts there.
Yeah.
Because if you have a healthy relationship, you'll be able to have that tennis match of, babe, I don't understand that. Can you help me?
Yeah.
You know, the back and forth to find clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's good.
what you have
Tennis
to do.
match.
You have to start there. You can't just assume because she ain't supporting you, it didn't start. It started way before then. So you build your relationship off of being healthy, not perfect. Then when that time comes to support you, she got your back.
So men all over the world who listen to this, you got it free. You didn't have to pay for it. You got it right here on Mentality Unchained for free.
And that's real though, because I think
Yeah.
we have these ideas based on tradition
Yeah.
that we're supposed to have this type of marriage and this type of relationship.
Right.
That may be true, but it's up to the individuals that's in that
Yeah,
relationship
there you
to
go.
make it so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So if you don't put the effort forward, then you ain't gonna have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I tell my couples all the time, it takes two
Yes,
to
sir.
have a healthy
Yes, sir.
relationship.
Yes,
That
sir.
means you got to give, I have to give,
Absolutely.
you have to take, I have to take.
Yeah, that's it.
So
It's good.
it's up to us. But here's the thing, though. So I have always had a fear of not being able to be myself or be successful because I come from a place where we've always had to work hard.
Yeah.
I come from a place where you didn't have much.
Yeah.
I come from a place that mama or daddy or grandmama didn't have it, and they had to do what they had to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the fear of not being able to be successful is always in me.
Mm-hmm.
And so my fear is that I would never be successful enough to take care of my family. So in that though, what's your greatest fear? What is your greatest fear as a black man?
Good question.
I have anxiety, to be honest with you. I have anxiety of being stuck. I don't ever want to be stuck.
Wow, that's good.
I don't ever want to be stuck.
That's
In
good.
what sense?
In sense of not moving forward, not being prosperous,
Okay.
not having a purpose,
Gotcha.
not leaving a legacy.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
I want my kids to, whenever the Lord says, hey, it's time for you to go, I want my kids to be able to stand on their own in society.
Yeah.
Right.
I want them to be able to be productive. I want them not locked up paying, we paying taxes for them.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
I want them to be responsible.
Yeah.
And I also want to leave them something.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
guess what? I don't know about y'all, but ain't nobody left me nothing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so I can't pay it forward. So that's why I work hard as I work now, is to leave them something so they don't have to start at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my greatest fear is not being able to be successful, and I have anxiety from that. You know, because I don't want to sit idle. I don't sit idle.
Yeah, that's good.
My wife loves to say, "Hey, you need to sit down sometimes. You
Yeah.
need to chill out."
Yeah.
I can't afford to.
Yeah.
You know,
That's good.
I can't afford to.
So that
what is
keeps you
y'all-
motivated.
Yeah,
pretty much.
right. So what is y'all
Self-motivation.
greatest fear? We all got kids now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think for me, and just in a nutshell, I kind of agree with you, man. I Thomas, I really want my children and my family to be successful either after I'm long gone.
Yeah. Right.
But I think even broader picture now with this assignment that God has given me, I don't want the church that God has given me to fail. I don't want to fail them as a pastor.
Yeah. Right.
So for me, I challenge myself every day to be better. To how can I help get M.O.B to the next level? You understand what I'm saying? So I think for me, it's not failing the people, not letting God down.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. I'm gonna say this before y'all answer this, is because he want the free. I'm gonna give him the free. As a pastor, though, is that you have to take care of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you can't take care of yourself, you really not giving them anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You giving them leftovers.
Yeah.
So in order for you to give them the best, you have to be the best. So it's up to you to take care of yourself. So you got to be a little bit selfish.
Yeah.
You have to take care of yourself and do some things for yourself. So when you get here and you stand before the people, you can give them all you need to give them. And so I think that applies to all of us, though. It's like, you know, you take care of yourself first, and then that translates to taking care of everyone else. Because you just can't, if you feeling like, let's use the word crap. If you feeling like crap, you're going to give crap.
Yeah.
But if you feeling good, you're feeling confident, you're feeling refreshed, then you're going to give them everything that you're supposed to give them.
So, bro, it's okay. And I know my wife gonna listen to this. So it's okay for me to be a little selfish. Is that what you're saying? So it's okay to be like.
Right.
You're not going to get Be careful with that.
You know, I think for me, it's not to just settle.
Yeah.
You know, always try to be better. Always try to do something different. Don't just be settled in what you're doing, because if you settled in what you're doing, you're never gonna get anywhere. You're gonna be stuck just right there. And that's for me. That's what it is for me.
Okay. Randy, what about you, man?
Man, I think what's the saying they always say? Don't leave a rock unturned.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at, to where, you know, sometimes I'll do certain things or make certain decisions, and I'll be like, I should have did it that way. And you know, it's one of the things I try to teach my son. You know, do everything in decent and in order.
Yeah.
But always strive to be your best. And you know, because as us being black men, we make decisions for our family, and I can sit there and say, yo, I'm not perfect. I've made bad decisions before.
No.
I've made bad decisions before, but just being able, I would say, even being able just to dust yourself off and go, okay, it's all right, you messed up, but it's next time.
Right.
And I know what not to do. And then, you know, just going back to just sharing. So I've learned it's okay to mess up. To where, you know, a lot of times being, you know, the head of the house, being the father, and then being a minister is like, man, if I mess up, it's like the weight of the world is on me. Like I failed everybody, and they're just looking at me like, I can't believe that minister said this, or he did that, or he's in that situation. How did he get there? But like I said, then once we have this outlet to where you can talk, and, you know, I thank God I have a awesome pastor because I could sit and talk to him, and to where he said, you know, it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And just to say, hey, man, it happens, and I was there. This happened to me before, and dusting myself off and getting right back in the game. So.
Well, he gave us a remedy. Be selfish.
Yeah.
Oh man, you're gonna take that home, man.
Ladies, it's a thin line.
I think you're right. He's right.
Yeah, you do, man.
If you don't, You're going to be giving till you have nothing else
Amen.
to give. And, it's like Kevin said, if you feel like crap, you going to give crap. And that's not good for.
That's one of the things he taught me, man. Just like he said, you got to be selfish. And when I say that, y'all know I'm joking.
Yeah.
But you know what? Right. At the end of the day, you do have to take care of yourself first.
Yes,
or you won't be any good for anybody.
Yeah.
And I'm learning that as a pastor. I can't give M.O.B. everything I got.
Right,
I can't.
right.
I have a wife. I have children. I have a family. I have a life of myself.
Yes, sir.
And, there are so many pastors, and I'm going to be done. So there's so many pastors that went on before us that the church was everything, and their house went lacking. Their marriages went down because they were so consumed. I would not allow the church. I don't believe that God will allow it to consume me.
Right.
I've got enough people around me to sow into me and say, bro, slow down. I got help here. And I thank God that I got help here, that people that help me and that love me and going to push me to be great. So, again, I'm going to continue to be selfish.
But the Word of God says for a pastor, it says for us to take care of the man of God. Yeah. Right. And when people hear that, especially people in church, they look at finances. It's not saying take care of him financially. That means, like I said, call him, see how he's doing, take him out to eat or something. Just appreciate him.
I like the catch.
Yeah.
I like the catch if you want to take him out.
Just appreciate him. And they look at that and they take their scripture out of context. Right. They said take care of the man of God, but everybody always look at money. Mm-hmm. Well, why should we give him X amount of dollars? It doesn't. It's not saying take care of the man of God financially.
Right.
So I'm gonna throw a little monkey wrench in this thing too. So if you're saying that, or you're saying that we should take care of the pastor, that's what you're saying.
That's what the words say.
Okay, so that's what the words say. Okay, okay, that's what the words say. Okay.
Don't put that on D.
So here again, I'm talking about mental health. We got people out here that are hurting, and you're saying that we got to take care of the pastor, and I agree with you. How do we start to take care of the people? Because we got people out there that are starving for inspiration from God, but they don't feel accepted, or they feel like, okay, if I come dressed a certain way, I can't get the help that I need. And even to go further is that I submit, and you're a pastor, I submit that a lot of the people out there need to get their mental right before they can even accept.
Come on, man.
God.
Come on.
And I think we overlook that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because again, like you said, we take care of the pastor, but then the pastor has to come in and do his thing. Right. How do we take care of the people?
Well, I think and I want to be vague on this because I don't want to be. Well, Deke said this.
No.
That some people, you mentioned the dress. Some people are stuck in tradition. Just like some people are stuck in religion. Some people are stuck in tradition. So this is how I'm supposed to look. This is how I'm supposed to go to church. Right. And that's not the case anymore. I don't think it ever was, but when we was growing up, at least when I was growing up, my mama said you got to wear your best to church because out of respect for God and out of respect for the church, we were brought up that way. But a lot of people are still stuck into that mentality that you got to look a certain way to come to church. Right. And the Bible says God don't look at the outside, look at your heart. Right. And some people will take that out of context too. God know this all I got, which it could be, but you can't look at the church and say, this all I got. Right. And this is how I got to come in. And the church can't look at you and say, well, you can't come in or we got to turn you around because you're not dressed appropriately. And again, it's mental. It is, I think.
Yeah, I think it touches a lot of people in different ways, but I think it's a responsibility on the people of the church to reach out to people that are trying to reach out to.
Yes.
Right. Because if they're coming, I mean, most of them, they're trying to find some inspiration to move on. Right. Somebody's dealing with suicide. Yeah. Somebody's been abused, sexual abuse, substance abuse. They're looking for something. And then you got people in churches that are pushing them away. Yeah. Now, I'm not here to bash any churches, and I'm not really here to talk in sense of the church I'm really here to say, hey, how do we as a people start to corral our community? And as black men, how do we start to corral our young men when they need us? So what's your thoughts on that? I mean, because we got a whole community out there that we should be preaching to.
Right. Yeah.
And we should be looking after, or we should be tried to help in the best way we can.
I don't want to do all the talking. I think, as
And he said he wasn't going to talk that much.
as Christians, as people in church, and bringing the people to church and trying to touch those young men out there. For I'm just gonna say it. for believers,
Okay.
who are cutting up as much as the young men in the streets,
Yeah.
and you go to them, and they
Hollering.
notice and they're gonna look at you like, well, how you gonna tell me to come to church to try to get me in church, and you doing the same thing I'm doing out in the streets?
Yeah.
You just going to church every Sunday, and I'm not. So by them looking at us that way, you're never gonna reach them. Because you can preach all day long, but you're not practicing what you preach. Right. Then it's in vain.
I think what Deke is talking about is examples. We need people to be examples. We need those fathers, those black men,
Sacrifice.
to absolutely to be
Right.
examples. Not to show you how to sell an ounce of weed, but to show you how pull up your pants, how to be respectful to women. You said something, bro. But I think the key word that gets overlooked a lot of times, how we deal with these things. We have to operate in love. We have to operate in love in our families. We have to, when we reach in the lost, with the men, we have to operate in love. When we welcome people into the church, I tell my people all the time. I told my ushers, don't tell nobody if a man come here with a hat on, don't tell him take your hat off or you got to leave. Don't do that. Maybe that's his comfortable. Maybe that's his. Let him sit down and let him receive something. When we know better, we do better. And I think we have to go back to the mentality because everybody ain't raised in church.
Amen.
Everybody don't have the biblical principles. And so you're going to have a lot of people who are going to do things that we might think is strange.
Yeah.
But we have to allow them to come in and we have to show love. That's the problem. Tradition, what we used to do and how we used to do it. And we look at people who are different than us. We look at them sideways.
Yeah.
But we were once there. Whether we know it or not, all of us deal with some kind of mental issue. Whether people want to deal with it or not, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's something, we all got some mental challenges that we need to overcome. We just hide behind the cross sometimes. We hide behind a religious conversation or a fake smile or a phony hug. But all of us are dealing with something.
Yes, sir.
And so I think that what we need to do is really just operate in love.
You said a mouthful, man. Hey, look, thank you for being transparent. Because I think people need to hear that. Randy said something, though, that really stuck with me. He said that I can just come to you and talk to you. Wow. When people see you, they see you as a pastor. They see you as a deacon. They see us as parishioners and members and ministers and so on and so on. Why can't they just see you as a man?
Right. And you know what? That's KT who I try to be. That's who I just want to be real. I don't when you asked us at the beginning, or do you want to be called this, you want to be called that, man, call us by our first name. Because at the end of the day, we're all just servants, we're all just men. And that's how I tell them all the time. If there's an issue, my door is always open. I'm not one of these pastors, and I'm not bashing no pastor that you got to make an appointment with. That's not what I'm saying. But my door is always open. Come talk to me. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna sit down and chop it up like men. You got problems? Let's talk about it. I tell my people all the time, if you want to cuss. I don't cuss, but if that's what however you want to vent to me, there's no judgment here. And that's how I want my people to understand. There's no I'm going to give you scripture. I'm going to tell you what the Bible says, but I want you to be open and honest with me because again, it's here. And I think that why have a pastor that you can't talk to? That you can't, you know what I'm saying? Now, there's a thin line there though, KT, because I think that when you get too comfortable, people think they can say everything.
Yes, sir.
The respect,
So there's a thin line there that you have to draw a line with certain people. But I also want you to know that I'm here. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be better, I don't have all the answers. I'll go get them. Exactly. But if you want to be better, let's be better together. And that's what I tell my people all the time. I'm not one of these guys that you can't reach. You know. So and I'm glad that Randy, myself, Deke, we talk about stuff all the time. He's going to be married in June. And me and him have talked about some things. And I've told him just how to be a man. Come talk to me. If you got issues, let's talk. Let's chop it up. I'm not going to sit there, well, the Bible says this and the Bible says that. We're going to talk as men. And I think that that's what we need, especially like you said, we're talking about mentality, we're talking about mindset, we're talking about lost people. We can't always beat people up with the word. If they don't know it and they don't understand it, it doesn't make any sense to them. But just be real. Be transparent. Meet them where they are.
Yes, sir. Exactly. Yes, sir.
I like that. How do we have more of these? How do we put the confidence in men that they can come and they can sit and just talk
Yeah.
How do we do that? Because we have an entire community out there, and I can't get them all on the show.
Yeah.
Right.
But how do we form some type of committee, whatever we need to do to have these type of discussions with men? And it don't even have to be in church environment. It don't have to be.
Yeah.
Just how do we have these?
Right.
How do we get them?
So Inky Johnson, football player, he
Yep,
played
I
at
remember
the University of
yep.
Tennessee. But he has a podcast called Serendipity with Inky Johnson. Him and this guy named Dr. Oak. But I've been watching their podcast probably for a couple months now. But he always has something, that you can grab. Always something, just like with Pastor Messages with Minister Scott's. Always something you can pick up on, even if it's not in your timing. It's always a piece, and you got to listen. But he had a podcast, and I can't remember which one it was. But in the podcast, he had a quote, and he said, "You one bad chapter doesn't define the book. You just stayed on the page too long."
Yeah,
And
like
when I
that.
heard it, I was like, man, I was like,
I like that.
I was like, you saying something.
That
I was
preach,
like,
man.
very, very simple, very subtle, but you said something. I was like, one bad chapter does not define a book, and I think that applies to everybody. One bad chapter doesn't define what you did, what you do.
Amen.
One bad chapter doesn't define a police officer. You just stayed on the page too long. You got stuck on George Floyd. You got stuck on this, and it's weighing you down, and now you can't progress. Now you can't move because you think, I'm like that, whatever.
Wow.
Like you said, see me
It's
as
good.
a man. When I show up on scene, see me as a man. That's what I am first, always, and forever. Never changes.
Right.
I just put on an exterior garment, or whatever. And just like with God, we have to see God for the God that he is and not the God that we try to perpetrate or that we try to create, based on what we hear.
Yeah.
Everything is based on interpretation. Everything is based on what we perceive and what we get. But you can't be too proud, to look beyond what you know and what you think. You can't be too proud to move past tradition and be like, you know what? We don't have to be traditional today. We can do something a little different.
Wow.
Whatever. We don't have to stay stuck on this page of doing everything in this sequence. And kind of go back. One of the things that I'm afraid of is being perfect. It has always been a fear of mine. Always been a fear. Being
A
perfect.
goody two shoe.
Being perfect. Always. Yep.
I like that.
And it was tough always growing up because I didn't have my dad. And it was some things that he's done or whatever. And at some point I found out that I, had a sister. And, not by my mom, but I didn't fault my dad for it necessarily all my life. At some point I grew. At some point I developed. But that was always my fear. And, like I said, that was something that I had to overcome. But even in my relationship, like I said, I did, step out of bounds at a point or whatever. And like I said, at the end of that year, my fiance, she gave me an ultimatum. Hey, this is where I stand. This is where I want.
There it is.
And you let me know. And she was vulnerable. She was open. But she saw me as a man. She didn't judge me. She didn't burn the clothes. She didn't go on Facebook. She didn't go on Snapchat. Nothing. She was just vulnerable. She allowed me to be in that space, be in that moment. And then she just let me speak. She let me hear her. I heard her. And I was like, you know what? I was wrong. I was so afraid of being the man my father thought, or I was so afraid of being the man that I didn't want to be because of what my dad has done, whatever. And I carried that in my relationship. I had so many monumental expectations that I couldn't see past tradition. I couldn't see past all the things that I created on my own, and that's why, why my mom, when she said, God, he allows and ordains things to happen. Sometimes God just sits back. Sometimes he sits in his chair, just like we do now, and just sits back and watch. And he lets you come to that place of, you hit rock bottom. I didn't put you there. Yeah, you hit rock bottom. I didn't let the devil do anything. You hit rock bottom. That was all you.
You created that.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's
it's like,
good.
okay, now that you're in this low place, now I'm
Let's
going to send
go.
you some help. The help is always there, like the Bible says, a ram in the bush. There's always a ram in the bush. You just got to be, big enough to see it. There's always a needle in the haystack. You just got to be big enough to see it. At some point, you got to take the blinders off. At some point, you got to move beyond everything you see and be like, look, you know what? You a cop, but like I said, let's not talk cop to cop. Let's not talk cop to civilian. Let's talk man to man. Let's talk woman to woman. Let's talk, man to child, whatever. Let me meet you where you are. Let me get off my high horse. Let me get off of my paycheck. Let me get off of my status. Let me get off of my job and let me meet you where you are. Let me go ahead and sit down. And even in counseling, one of the biggest things they tell you, and even in this critical or crisis intervention team training that I got, one of the biggest things that they taught us was dealing with mental health. And some of the biggest things that help even children is sitting down. Sometimes it's so simple, so subtle, but you have to put yourself where they are. We can't always,
Empathy.
Yes, exactly. You have
good.
to at some point, move beyond everything you're doing. And even Inky Johnson had mentioned something about gratitude, waking up with this appreciation or with this gratitude for life. Just waking up and not asking God for anything, not asking your wife for nothing, just being grateful. You know what? I'm glad I woke up today. I'm glad I got a job. I'm glad I got money. I'm glad I got clothes. All these different things. And I know I'm saying a lot, but man, I'm telling you, just listen to his podcast is always beneficial. But those different things. You know, it's one bad chapter doesn't define a book. You know, you stayed on the page too long. And at some point, you got to be vulnerable. Vulnerable doesn't mean weak. Vulnerable doesn't mean being less of a man or a woman. It just means putting yourself in that person's shoes, being empathetic, and realizing that everything doesn't have to be tradition. Everything doesn't have to be Matthew's way or Dontrell's way or, you know, James's way. It can sometimes be, you know, this is just the way it has to be in this moment. Let me just sit down, take off everything. Let me move all the standards, the pillars, and everything that governs how society says we should be, and let's do something a little different. You know,
I really believe in my heart that there are a lot of police officers believe like you, but I don't think we give them a chance.
Oh yeah,
we don't give them a chance. We don't listen to them. We're so quick to just cast them out. And I appreciate you coming on the show talking about that, because I think people need to see that police officers are human.
Exactly.
You know, they're not Superman. So, man, brother, happy. Thank you very much. I will say this too, because I man, it's so much to be said, and I'm trying to, you know, make sure I'm, you know. But I will say this is that we're not responsible for what people say about us.
Exactly.
That's their opinion. We don't have to make it so. So the judgment that's being passed based on what they see from the outside, that doesn't dictate who we are. We as black men are allowing that to happen and manifest, and it's a problem.
Don't take it personal.
Right.
Don't take it
and
personal.
so even in that, tradition is not built to just be tradition. It's not routine. It's built to be built upon. So it's a baseline. It's a foundation.
Foundation.
And so you build upon that. And what we're doing is we're getting stuck in tradition, and that's it. Well, look, I'm gonna give you a free canvas today. Free canvas. It's all blank. Ain't nothing on there. Nobody ain't painted nothing on it. What would you want people to see from your canvas?
Wow.
It's blank. Ain't nothing on it.
Wow.
What would you want people to see on your canvas?
That's good.
Paint the picture for the people.
Damn.
That's good.
Transparent.
I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, that's a deep question.
Wow.
I would want you to see
Wow, I never thought about that.
from the perspective of a man, that you have to unravel all the layers that a person comes with, even if you can't see them at first. You know, like I said, for every black person, you know, that interacts with a white person, vice versa, whatever race, not just talking about race, but just to bring it up since it's such an easy, you know, topic or whatever. Every time you see somebody, every time you interact with somebody, sometimes it's not what you see then and in that moment. Even in counseling, you know, you have to be able to see beyond what a person presents, because there's always something underneath there. Even if they can't figure it out, I may not be able to define it, I may not be able to put my finger on it, but like I said, maybe together, like I said, I can open up a couple things. Okay, let me open up this door. Okay, it's not that one, let's close this one, let's go to the next one. And at some point something starts to hit a core. At some point something starts to hit, you know, that moment, and it clicks, you know. So that's what I would want people to see. You know, at some point I would want you to see that I'm a father, that I'm African-American, that I'm vulnerable, that I'm open, that I'm not angry, that I'm not judgmental, that I'm not a thug, that I'm not a criminal, that I don't sag because I want to, that I don't wear my clothes or do things a certain way because I don't know. You know, like I said, I do it, you know, because that's what society says, because nobody has ever told me you don't have to be the standard. You don't have to be the statistic that, you know, everybody is actually. I want people to see that that statistic is just a number. You know, but I'm not always a part of that number that you think I'm a part of, that I stand out, that I'm a little different, that it's okay, you know, if I have a difference of opinion that's not the public's opinion, that's not the African-American community's opinion. You can call me what you want, but God never told me to be standard. He told me to be peculiar. You know, God told me to stand out. That's my job. That's my duty.
Come to Bible.
You know?
I think
you look good in front of all these pictures.
I think you hit on something, and it's just, I feel the same way.
Right.
That's good.
I feel that when I want people to look at my canvas, I want them to see abstract.
Right.
Abstract is not no perfect way. It's not no straight up and down. It's not no side to side. It's just unique.
Exactly.
It's different.
Yep.
It's not the same. It's not the status quo.
Exactly.
And I don't have to succumb to judgment or anything else. Just I want them to see a colorful canvas. It can be greens, blues, reds, and that's the difference. I think we all have to get to that point where everybody don't be judging us based on tradition, based on what they think a black man should be. So
That's
I would
good,
love
too.
for them
That's
to
good,
see
man.
abstractly, because everything is not black and white.
Exactly.
Either or. It's not like that. So I want them to see abstract. Now, I got 3 more. What's still? What would you like to see?
You done stunned us on that question.
Yeah, that was good. When Matt was talking, he was talking about that. I think the one word when I thought about a blank canvas, I thought about legacy.
Yeah, that's good.
I thought about legacy because there are 2 types of people. There are people who make impressions, and there are people who make impacts. I want my life to be impactful to the people that I've came in contact with.
Wow.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
good.
so I think for me, legacy was the word that stood out. You know,
Yeah.
with all of the
Exactly.
with all of the colors and all of the different things that go on, I think at the end of the day, I want legacy to be there. Man, I remember that dude. That was a real dude.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? I might not agree with everything he said, but he was a real dude.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
That's good.
Y'all still stumped over there?
No. I mean, you said a blank canvas. I mean, we dealing with colors or words. But I mean, if I had a blank canvas, I just wanted to say, I am who I am. And, you know, I always tried to be different. I always try to tell my son, don't be like everybody else. It's okay to be a little different. Either the way I dress or the way I speak. I might not say everything the perfect way, but I always was able to get my point across. And, you know, just being different. But like Pastor said, you know, legacy, I say impactful.
Wow.
I want to, when I leave here, I want people to remember, you know, Randy left he impacted my life.
Yeah.
I remember him for this, or he said that, or he had this style. You know, he didn't copy off everybody else. He did it his way. And when he spoke, you know, he did it my way. And when he spoke, you know, however God gave it to him, that's what he gave. You know, so impact.
Wow.
Let me KT again. This your show, bro. I'm trying to take so let me ask this question before you come back, Deke. Why is different wrong in people's eyes? When you see somebody who does something different that's out of the status quo, that's not normal, what black people do, whether it's the way you dress, whether it's the way you
we
talk,
say they crazy.
Why do we label people crazy, or why do we see different as wrong?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that because I want to clarify that too. Is because when we do that, when we say they're wrong or that's not the way we do it or whatever, that's a form of judgment. And this is the thing that I try to teach black people for sure, because we say if a person doesn't do this, that something wrong with them, or because a person doesn't do that or believe what we believe, they're the one wrong. Well, why can't we be the one that's wrong? You see, so and we like to say, well, you know, I don't have a heaven or hell to put them in. I get that. But at the end of the day, is we're being judgmental when we're saying what you did was wrong. Like, say, Matt says, oh, you know what? I think all police officers are the best thing since sliced bread, right? And I say, well, no, you're wrong. We're being judgmental of his opinion, of his thought process. And so we have to be careful that we're not being judgmental. I dislike judgmental people. I was going to say something else. Because
watch it now.
Because we're not careful. We're saying we're being self-righteous. We're saying that we're better than you. Our thoughts, our opinions are better than yours.
So let me ask you this, Kev. Do we know that we're being judgmental?
No, we don't, because we feel that whatever we are saying, we're right. So we don't even think about being judgmental. And then two, we use again that I don't have a heaven and hell to put you in, and I'm not judging you, but I'm judging you by your fruits. You judge.
Exactly.
You judge.
But see, bro, and then, bro, we keep looking until we find somebody to agree with us.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
Wow.
Look,
guys.
We'll take all that. We'll take all that energy and talk to 30 brothers till we find that one that agree and be like, see, I told you.
Look, we got to get out of here, but James, I ain't letting you off the hook. What does your canvas look like, brother?
I don't know, man. This is a hard question. Maybe I can say it'd have to be stability. Okay. That would be my canvas. Because I'm a stable person. I don't let a lot of people influence me. A lot of people change me. And it'd be a picture of me really with stability above me. Yeah,
bitch.
because I'm not gonna let
Dance.
people change how I think, how I feel, what I say.
Gotcha.
That's it's just me. I'm stern on
You got that
what I
right.
believe and what I say and what I do.
Okay.
And the church said amen.
So stability is your thing. Okay. Well, I tell you what, fellas. Before we get out of here, I always like to give last minute words of encouragement, some advice. And I know we're running on time, but I still want to do that. What advice would you leave for the audience, for a young black man, or just for people in general? What advice in 30 seconds or or less? What kind of advice would you want to leave with the people?
Kind of like I mentioned earlier, Dinky Johnson, quote, "One bad chapter does not define a book. You just stayed on the page too long." Very simple, very easy, but write it down, read it, and just understand it for what it is. Every time you interact with somebody, understand that one bad chapter, that one bad moment in life, that one bad moment, and even, Chauvin or whatever, that one bad moment does not, define a book. We just stayed on the page too long. At some point, we got to move on. At some point, life goes on. At some point, we have to, continue to progress. Learn from it, pick up on it what you need, but you got to move on, whatever. That bad chapter cannot be the main core cults of what you do, of what you think, or how you feel, because it affects a lot of things, mental health included.
Gotcha.
I would say be comfortable in who you are. Be comfortable in your own skin. I think that we've been talking about it today. I think we try to be so much like other people, or we want the approval of other people so much. We go out of our way to be people who we're really not.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that just be comfortable in who you are. And as a pastor, I got to say this. Faith. I mean, with mental health and the different things that we're dealing with today, and I was very ignorant to the fact of a lot of mental health and things that go on, but since my wife and meeting and me and KT talking and reading and finding out the different things, it's really, really big in the African American community. And we don't know how big it really is. A lot of us deal with it and don't know we're dealing with it. So I would say just be comfortable in your own skin. Have your faith to reach out to a higher power for that extra strength you need. Go to people like KT to get your therapist help that you need here on earth. But you also reach to a higher power for God to give you strength to make it through the storm.
Appreciate that.
A couple sayings, probably 2 or 3 sayings at least. Nothing's impossible. Never give up. Everything is possible.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Wow. I appreciate that.
Well, I just want to say that black men, you should not be afraid to seek help, to ask for help. If you're vulnerable, if you feel vulnerable, you still should be able to go and ask for help and get help if you need help. Because the pride will not define you. The pride will break you. So you need to. You need to.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, fellas, I truly, truly enjoyed myself.
Man, we enjoyed you too, bro. I didn't try to take your show over, bro. Have me back again. I didn't try to take your show over, bro. My
Just
bad.
switch chairs with it.
My bad, bro.
I appreciate y'all transparency, your honesty. This is the stuff that we're trying to do. It's trying to bring light. What you guys have said here today, somebody will listen to this and maybe on the brink.
Right.
And this is the thing that I'm trying to push, is that if you feel like you are out there by yourself, you're not.
Exactly.
And I'm praying and I'm hoping that you guys continue to extend the arm to help people in need. Because at the end of the day, we are interdependent people. We need each other.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so we got to realize that. And once we realize that, we can help many more people. But as I always say, when I get out of here, I always say we all have the ability to change all our situation. Only we focus on what we can change.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We focus on what we can change and leave everything else where it's at. It'll take care of itself.
Amen.
So
Amen.
I just asked that. I actually, guys, join me May 7th. I'm having a mental health forum, and it's going to be open discussion. It's going to be panel discussion, presentations. It's going to be May 7th at the Norloff Center, 118 North Main. Y'all come out, support, and it's going to be some people y'all can mingle with, talk to, get to know people, different clinicians, different people that's doing things in the community. I'm trying to bring people together. We're trying to bridge the gap because we need it.
Good. Right.
We're in a situation now that you can't do anything by yourself.
Yeah.
And so we need each other, and I want to invite you guys out to that May 7th and pass the word around. Also, you can find me at anywhere, Mentality Unchained, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you get your podcast at.
all
I'm
over.
everywhere. So ain't no
Mentality
excuse.
Unchained.
So please hit me up, Mentality Unchained. Thank you guys for joining me.
Time
All
to
right,
man
thank
up.
you.
Appreciate
Yes,
you,
sir.
man.
Yes,
All
sir.
All right.
Guys, I appreciate that, man.
We appreciate you, man.
Yeah, definitely. No, that was good.